Hey, fellow traveler. Welcome to the Third Eye Awakening podcast, a show where we talk all about spiritual and psychic awakening, magic, the shift from 3D to 5D, starseeds, ascension, multiple timelines, multiple dimensions, the universe, the multiverse, the Akashic records, all the good things. I am your host, Amy Belair, and I'm so glad to have you here with me today. Okay, let's do this. Hi, listeners. Welcome to another episode of Third Eye Awakening. Thank you so much for being here, as always. Today, I'm really excited to talk with Kevin Anderson. We met through, Kevin booked a reading with me, one of the multidimensional holographic matrix repatterning sessions, and some very cool stuff came up. And I was like, oh, do you want to come on my podcast and just like talk about your spiritual journey and your perspective and stuff like that? So Kevin's here to talk about all the cool things that come up. Thank you so much, Kevin, for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Amy.
So Kevin is a personal development consultant that works with individuals as well as businesses, and he helps clients to achieve more fulfillment in their lives. He works with businesses to improve production and engagement while helping employees create more fulfilling careers, which sounds awesome because I really think that that's one of the most, I think where we're headed and what really is ready to happen, like very ripe and ready to happen, is for people to work, like spend their life force energy and their time in ways that are fulfilling to them, in careers and endeavors that are fulfilling to them. So I think the kind of work that you do is super important. Can you tell us a little bit more? Like, I know that's the little mini blurb that I ask people to give me before we start. Can you tell us a little bit more about who you are and how it is that you find yourself on a journey of spiritual acknowledgement, spiritual discovery, that kind of stuff?
Sure. Honestly, I don't really know how I found myself on the journey that I'm on. I guess it was more just having a lot of questions when I was younger, not really understanding most of what I saw going on around me. And it started at a young age. And then I think what really kick-started my spiritual development was the hard times I went through. So, as human beings, we like to label everything. So going around trying to find help, getting the labels of depression, bipolar, stuff like that. I've been in dark places, so I kind of accepted it, but I just nothing really resonated with me at the time. So, maybe 20 years ago, middle class America trying to get help, I couldn't really find what worked for me. There was really nothing. So I ended up just looking into things myself. I started reading, researching. Things got better, things got worse. I cycled just like we all do, I feel like. And it wasn't until, how old was I? I think I was 25. And I had been dealing with like a lot of anger issues and stuff. Like I was just a very pissed off person constantly. Like I'd wake up hoping to feel well, and then by mid-morning I'd be pissed off again. And I had no idea why. Like I wanted to be a happy person. And I thought everyone around me was kind of happy. They had it all figured out. I just felt like there was something wrong with me. And so as like a last ditch effort, I met this guy who did hypnosis. I went to his office and he did his thing. But before we got into the hypnosis, he started talking to me about meditation. And we went through a 5-minute practice round, and that was what really stuck with me. And there was no immediate change or anything like that, but I just started reading into that and researching that, and I carried on with that practice for a while. I fell off, got back on, but it seemed to be something that when I made it a consistent practice in my life got better. I felt better, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
So that's really where everything started for me. It was kind of just getting in touch with myself. I feel like before I started meditating, I didn't really have a relationship with me. Everything was external. And I was just kind of allowing external events, circumstances, situations to dictate my life, my direction. And that all changed with meditation. And so I continue doing that pretty much daily to this day. And even still, if I stop, I feel a gigantic shift in my energy and my flow, my happiness. Just keeps me grounded. And now kind of have my life together a lot more than I did before. I'm still human, so I still go through everything that we all go through in life. Everything is impermanent, everything changes constantly, but I can do it with optimism most of the time. I know that even if things get bad, they're going to get better. And my mission now with personal development is helping others develop relationships with themselves, develop that confidence. And then, like you said, I feel like society in general is shifting and it's becoming more important. People are feeling empty. And I think a lot of that has to do with, the programming that we receive in the standard education system, and, get in debt, work a job, making as much money as possible. Doesn't matter what you do, just so you can buy shit. And I feel like people are waking up to the fact that that doesn't provide fulfillment, and any type of happiness is temporary.
Hmm.
So that's kind of one of the things that I started working with businesses, specifically small businesses, especially now with COVID. A lot of people have been out of work, and it's going to take some time and effort to develop back into being a full-time worker. But then also, analyzing, what do you want? Are you really doing what calls you? Or are you conforming? That's pretty much it. A lot of people have, through the generations, just kind of conformed. So if you don't have like a really passionate answer to the question of why you do what you do, there's a chance you may not be doing the right thing.
Yeah, definitely. Oh man, there's so many things that you talked about that I
Sorry, I kind of rambled on forever there.
no, you didn't. It was all beautiful and perfect. Like it makes me so happy when other people talk about the programming because for some reason I have this, I don't know, I think I still have a little bit of a bugaboo about being perceived as a conspiracy theorist, which is really funny because like I don't know why that would bother me, but it's part of the programming basically. But whenever I talk like ad nauseum about, or I feel like it's ad nauseum about the programming, that's when it gets activated. Like I'm afraid that I just sound like, oh, Amy, like, you're just paranoid. But to me, it's so evident and it makes such a big difference in how we choose, like the choices we make basically, and what we allow ourselves to experience with our life is the way that we're programmed. And I think it really is like deliberate programming, like you mentioned with school, to sort of encourage us to choose to fit into a box that may
Mm.
or may not actually have anything to do with our authentic gifts and our energy, our purpose, our mission, like, our passion and our joy. And a lot of people, like you said, are feeling that emptiness and sort of realizing that the culture that came about, especially it seems to me like in the 80s, it was really, really prevalent of purchasing things and going into debt. I mean, I know it extended beyond the 80s, but I feel like that's when it really boomed, was that sense of like buying things because you have a paycheck and because you get a dopamine hit when you do. It feels good, but then the objects themselves are empty because we were never taught how to, like, I'm all for buying things. I love buying things, but I love buying things that are actually going to bring me like joy for a long period of time.
Funny because anytime someone's goal is to buy something, you know, whatever it is that you want to buy, what you're really searching for is the emotion that you
Yes,
attach to purchasing that item, right?
totally.
And so, what if you could get that emotion through a more permanent means? You can have that same excitement about, from a car, but instead just get it naturally through working out, going into nature, meditating. What I'm probably going to burn out the word meditation throughout this podcast, but it's just because it's something that means so much. It's funny that you said that you noticed that like cultural shift in the 80s, because that was right after the 70s when people were kind of starting to wake up, right?
Hmm.
There were
Mhm.
a lot of free spirits, and then I the whole conspiracy thing, I totally understand your point of view on that. And maybe it is programming that gets triggered when you bring something up. But also, I feel like it's difficult when you feel like you can see things so clearly, yet you might be the only one in your circle that can see the things you see,
Mhm. I think
right?
that's exactly it. Like, that's where my little bugaboo is that, like, feeling that I carried for the majority of my life of being like, "But it's so clear, like, I can see it," and, like, and then having my real life people respond to me in that way of like, "Oh, Amy."
It's so difficult to do because people can always find evidence to support what their beliefs are.
Totally.
So you even I've I don't try to I never have really tried to push my beliefs on others or anything. But even when you want to help somebody because they're not, and we say the word seeing, but what I really am talking about is feeling. Like intuition, being able to feel things, understanding how they make sense. Again, the programming we receive is to concentrate on our five senses, right? Our five senses that gets like shoved into our psyches. Five senses, five senses. Forgetting about any other senses we may have, any other gifts that we may have, and just you can only believe in what you can touch, taste, smell, see. But there's so much beyond. Like our five senses are they're inefficient, right?
Mhm.
Like we can only see a certain percentage of the visible light spectrum. We can only smell certain things, hear certain things. And there's so much more to just this reality in general than what we can experience through our five senses.
Absolutely, totally. I couldn't agree more, and that was really
Well,
I
yeah, you know that obviously
but I
with
mean,
what
the
you
funny
do.
thing is I didn't for a long time, and that's really sort of the premise, or it's not, I don't know if it's the premise. It's a foundational piece of, so I've just created this course, the psychic activation course, because what I found was that's the thing, is that the information is all there all the time. So basically, I'm just giving all of you guys a mini little a mini version of the course right now, but the information is all there all the time. It exists through multiple dimensions, and dimensions aren't places. They are, to me, what I understand them to be is like just different bandwidths of vibration, different frequencies or different wavelengths. So the information translates, or consciousness translates itself in different ways at those different wavelengths. And we are in this tiny, like you mentioned, the visible light spectrum, like we're in this tiny, tiny little sliver of
Mhm.
of information wavelength, and we're dialed into it because our bodies are created to interpret the information at that specific wavelength. So it's really cool. There's, like, the physical is amazing, and the things that our bodies are able to translate is amazing, but that's not all there is. And so I didn't think I was psychic for ages, and because I was expecting it to be something different than it is. I just had like key misunderstandings. And when I finally realized that, like, oh, yeah, it's just that there's more information and I have the ability to access it. And also, like, it's not going to feel or come through in the same way that it does through my physical senses. So to stop requiring it to do so in order for it to be validated. And then just playing with that and learning to, yeah, to respond to information that comes in through different ways, not through my five senses, was really the premise. And now this is what I do. and, and so
Yeah,
it
what you do is awesome.
Thank you. And I feel like this is what we all are able to do. And it's going to look different for everybody the same way. Like I can bounce a basketball, but I'm never going to like, be an NBA player. Um,
Right.
and that's fine. It's just not like I'm not interested in doing that either. So I don't have the motivation to put the time and energy into cultivating that. But it's going to look different for all of us. But we all absolutely have the ability to receive and interpret information from beyond the five physical senses that we have.
I always hear the analogy of like turning a radio station to a certain station.
Hmm.
Like the information's always there around, but you can only receive it once you turn it to that certain station and pick up those waves.
Yeah, which I think is exactly why meditation is such an essential practice. And also it's challenging, and also it looks different for everybody because some people have very dynamic body systems with a lot of energy moving through their physical body, and other people are naturally very still, and other people are really cerebral and have a lot of mind chatter, and like so some people fall asleep really easily. Like it's going to be different for everyone, but the whole point is like creating that space of, it's not really, I mean, tell me how it is for you, but for me it's not non-thought, but it's like less thought. It's more
I
gentle,
I
fluid
agree.
thoughts.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things that can hold some people. I think it's beautiful that you said it's different. You know, it's totally subjective. It's going to be different for everyone. And I think part of the problem, just I guess human beings in general, we always set expectations even before we know anything about something or experiencing something, right? So with meditation, you're going to hear about it through most likely someone you know. They're going to explain what it is to them. Then you're going to try to make it about, you're going to try to make it for you what it is to them, right? And so with no thought, that's one of those things where you ask someone who's never meditated, what do you think meditation is? And a lot of people will answer like no thought. It's never been that to me. And in the beginning, I used to strive to reach that point. So I always felt like I wasn't successful at it, even though it was helping me, you know? No, it's more slowing down, but also more of a feeling again, like calmness. Sometimes even like being called home, I guess, in a way, like you're back where like you're when you can get to a point, I guess the best meditations that I have, I've become an awareness. I still am aware of things, but it's beyond the physical body at that point. It's beyond my senses. There's nothingness, but I'm still there. And
Mhm.
actually, like that was one of those experiences I had. Well, one of the first times I had that experience is what helped me really realize like I am more than my body, is just being able to be that awareness. And so if you can carry that awareness with you and that mindset or soul set, or I guess whatever you want to refer to it as, if you can carry that around and just be witness to life, even though bad shit happens and life sucks sometimes, we all chose to be here. We knew what we were getting ourselves into, right? So I think it makes sense for us to try to enjoy our human experience as much as possible, even though it's not perfect by any stretch of the imagination. But when you can just be the awareness and not be reactive to shit going on,
Mhm.
that's when I mean, and it's hard. It's not easy. I know all this stuff. I've known this for years. I practice meditation constantly, and it's still difficult not to react to things because we are emotional beings. But if
Mhm.
you can allow yourself when something happens, even a split second of time to choose a reaction, to choose a response instead of react, that can make a huge difference in your life.
Absolutely. And I really appreciate you acknowledging how hard it is, because I recently recorded a little, I don't know, like a ramble that I put on my Patreon feed about being human and having the human experience within the illusion, and how like there's no way around that, and that like it's kind of this beautiful dance of like cultivating that ability to be the awareness and to be non-reactive, but also like being aware of our reactivity.
Yep.
And like, and so we'll have moments where we are reactive because we're here, and the illusion is very, very convincing. Like it feels very real, and it is real, but it's just not the only real. And so like even just like responding to our own reactivity is fine. It doesn't mean you just walk through life in a state of constant bliss where nothing phases you anymore. It's just like where when you catch yourself being phased, you can be like, oh cool, like right, this is part of the whole human shebang. It just is
One
what it is.
100%. And I think for those of us out there in the world that are more emotional, it can be even harder because everything with reactivity is emotion. Something's triggering, it's happening right away. For me, it used to be anger was my number one emotion. And so when something would happen, I built these neural pathways, these neural networks to react with anger to whatever was going on around me. And you can get through, I think, with meditation, or at least for me and most people that I've worked with, you can get through those super intense reactions, but you're still never going to be perfect. And I think it's vitally important for everyone to be compassionate with themselves.
Mm.
We're always so quick to tell everyone that we love them, right? Typically, some people hold it in, but we typically express emotion. We tell people how we feel, or at least let them know that we love them. But what about your relationship with you? You
Hmm.
know, are you forgiving with yourself? Do you ever look in the mirror and just say like, "I love you"? I know maybe it sounds weird,
I do all
but
the time.
okay. So you want to, you are owed, like, this whole entire life cycle that you're experiencing right now. As long as you are you, you're going to have to deal with yourself, right? So it makes sense to love who you are.
Yeah.
And if you're at a point where you don't, you find it difficult to identify things that you do love about yourself, then it's a challenge to find those things. Or you can change your human existence into what you envision to be the person that you could love. Everyone should have self-love. It's vitally important, but also, yeah, like you said, with reacting, be forgiving, be compassionate to yourself, because you're gonna fuck up. Like, it's what's gonna happen. Nobody's perfect.
Totally. And also that like there's so much value in our fuck ups. So much
Oh,
value.
for sure.
It's just they don't feel good, but also like how is it that our emotions became this big boogeyman? They're just transient states of being. They pass through and by so fast if we just don't resist them and just let them be there until they're, ready to be gone. Like basically until we felt them all the way and we've received the, to me it feels like it's like an alchemy process, so it alchemizes you and transforms you in one way or the other, and if you don't resist it and you just like even your your intense anxiety or your anger or whatever, it doesn't feel good. It's not meant to be an emotion that sticks around long term, but like there's anger is just really telling you that you either you have a trauma that's been triggered or a shadow that's been triggered, or that one of your like really sacred important boundaries has been violated or something like that, right? Like it's just like a big fucking resounding like no. this is not this is not how I want things to be. And it's a great motivator to examine things from a different perspective. And I it's just funny that we basically are bluffed into believing that our emotions are not reliable, and that they're like boogeymen, that we need to like make choices that are trying to avoid stepping on the landmines that bring about uncomfortable emotions, which is just a really weird way to live.
You know what? Honestly, you just made me have this thought. Our emotions could be communicating, like it could be our higher self communicating with us, right? So for me, with my anger, my basically what was happening, I believe, was that I was thinking about shit that was triggering me, right? Because emotions come from thoughts first. So if you're thinking about something, your body doesn't know the difference between an event occurring in real time and you thinking about an event. And so we replay the past over and over again, just as human beings, is just how our minds operate or how we were programmed to operate or whatever. So we replay these events, and I was just thinking about shit that was pissing me off all the time without even knowing about it. That's where meditation came in, because I started understanding my thoughts better. I started being more aware of the thoughts that were occurring, and living your everyday life, like you're always thinking about stuff. Even if you're fully engaged in doing something physically, you could still be thinking about something entirely different. And so you want to pay attention to that. But it could be either your thoughts just kind of going about doing their own thing, causing negative emotions, or perhaps it's just something in your environment. Like I think part of it for me was also that I didn't understand people very much, like the fighting, the arguing, the ego, the battles constantly, when we're supposed to be this intelligent species, right? We're so advanced. We're so much more advanced than the animals on this planet and stuff. And it's like, are we though?
Right.
Because as long as human beings have existed, we've been, conquering each other. It's just been, and so I think, Amy, I know that when we talked, you kind of shed some light on, my history and past lives and stuff like that, which was amazing. So thank you again. But I think a lot of my past experiences and my negative emotions were due to the fact that, like, I didn't have answers to the questions. I felt like shit was not what I was being told or educated, and it's just like nothing made sense. Like I didn't understand all of and I still don't. I mean, the United States is more divided now than, I mean, when wasn't it divided? I guess, right? But it's just ridiculous how we. But I don't know. We don't come together. But then I guess that's why the collective consciousness on Earth is shifting higher at this time, right? Because it's been cycle after cycle of this primitive, conquering, ego-driven, left-brained society on Earth,
Mhm.
which is now changing, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Totally. And if you're willing to share, what was I remember what came through, but I just want to hear it in your your words. What came through for you in the session that we had that helped to sort of give your past confusion and anger and frustration a new context for you?
Well, first we started with my chakras, and surprisingly, you had positive information to give me about how open my chakras were. So Amy started talking about my heart chakra, and then said it seemed like I've done a lot of work on it. And I told Amy that my wife and I went on our honeymoon, and I was getting a lot of synchronicities to open up my heart, live more from my heart, because I'd always, I've been very much about like third eye, astral projection, trying to develop that. But I was getting a lot of information saying like the heart is where it connects everything. And Amy was like, "Did you go to Hawaii?" I guess because you could see like flowers and stuff in your vision. That like threw me off. It just caught me off guard that you knew where we went and stuff, and you were like, "That was good for your heart chakra," which I totally agree with. It was amazing. So anyone listening, go to Hawaii. It's awesome. But then you had mentioned that I was a healer, that I was a star seed, a mix of Palladian and Syrian,
Hmm.
and I had never really read or looked into star seeds or anything. I had maybe heard the term before, but since then I've read 3 or 4 books on star seeds, and it's just it's really wild how accurate all the information that I'm getting is, in regards to like how star seeds or Palladians in particular handle things, what their career choices end up being. Like really, pretty much everything was spot on. So I just feel like since we did that session, I've gotten to know myself even better, and not as much from this life, but from like past lives, and why the world made no sense and still makes no sense to me. Why we, human beings are so primitive and do shit the way they do shit, and lie, cheat, steal to come up financial. Like I don't, money is like, I agree with you, Amy. I like to buy things too, but it's not the most important thing, and that's what gets just shoved down everyone's throats. And then going back, so that was most of what really resonated with me, and I took away. So yeah, again, thank you for kind of opening up my mind a little bit into that.
Well, it was a huge honor to connect with you. And like, it's just my favorite thing to be able to be in a position to connect with somebody, beyond like when I get to go on a session with people, usually they let their guards down, which is really nice. And then to be able to just channel out information that wants to come forward and be consciously like seen and integrated and known. And it's so much fun when it's like, yeah, you're a starseed, you're a healer. Like there's things don't make sense to you here, but it's because you're like your soul has already evolved through other experiences in other realms through this whole like stalemate pattern that we're in as humans. So this feels like like a repeat of a grade that you're like, I've done this. Like, why can't you get it, people? I think a lot of us feel that way. It's really hard to, and it's not a judgment against the ones who haven't passed that grade yet. It's not even like that. I mean, that's a poor analogy. It makes it sound hierarchical and it's not. But it's helpful, I think, to know that like, oh, the frustration I feel is not it's not just for nothing. It's because there's an aspect of my consciousness that remembers that this is not the way it has to be, that there are way, 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 way more efficient and exciting and co-creative, you know, ways of arranging ourselves and working together and existing in our environment.
Yep, absolutely. Amy, I have a question for you.
Sure.
Would you say that the majority of your client experiences are like people that are star seeds or light workers or something like that? Like more of a, I don't know how to say, like more of a consciously advanced maybe
Yeah, I would say
people?
that the people that I attract into my orbit are like, I kind of say in my Facebook group a lot, I'm like, if I'm doing a live, I'm like, look, if you're here, you're probably a star seed because I don't know how you would resonate with me otherwise.
That's
Um,
true.
but but that that being said, like, so there are some people who are really here and they're really like clear and mission aligned or mission driven, or they feel like they have a mission. And then there are a lot of people that are star seeds, but man, they've been through so much hard shit that there's still a lot of like human healing and human trauma that has to happen, or healing that has to happen. And but I think I've had a small handful. Like I can think of some people who when I connect with them, I'm like, oh, you're an earth human. Like you are an earth being. This is your place. This is where all of your incarnation experiences that I am aware of have happened. And it is a different frequency, and it doesn't necessarily mean that they are less advanced, but it's a little bit different. The programming is heavier. Let's put it that way.
Gotcha.
Hmm.
That's interesting. Is the information that you provide typically well received, or because
By
I ate everything up that you said. I was like 100% Palladian Starseed. Like, let's do it. I feel like, I guess even if I had met you 20 years ago, before I had, you know, been meditating and had the experience that I've had, I don't know if it would have resonated with me as much.
yeah, it
So is
probably.
it?
I think probably what happens, because I totally know what you mean. Like there's another realization that I've had where I'm like, oh, all this information is available. It's like really a function of my conscious ability to decode it and to like have a context for it. So it's not like if I heard something 20 years ago, I agree. I think I probably wouldn't have totally been able to receive it the way I can receive it now, or I might not have been able to receive it at all. But that wouldn't have made it less true. And then probably it would have just like taken a long time to germinate, and then it would have sprouted
Mhm.
when the conditions were right. So I think, yeah, if we had met like 10 years ago and I gave you the exact same information, you might have been like, yeah, all right. Your conscious mind might have been like, sure, sure, sure. But it would have resonated just enough to plant as a seed and take its
Plant that
time.
seed. I can honestly say, like, I feel like I met you at the perfect time
Mm,
for in my like development, or my experience, my path on this planet. It was literally, I heard you on another podcast, and I was at the gym, I was working out, and I was like, I am definitely gonna reach out.
yeah, I'm so glad that you did. And I feel like that's the way it's really working out these days for a lot of people too, is like we're all, as much as, I mean, and I say this because I want to shake people awake. And it's hard. Like my human self gets impatient sometimes, where I'm just like, especially as the intensity is ramping up, like you were commenting about the division in the United States, and I'm in Canada, and our government is doing just all kinds of insane things. And you want to wake the other people up and be like, listen, we have to rebel, we have to take a stand and whatever, but we can't, I know this, that we can't wake other people up. But at the same time, people are waking up in their own time, and everything is aligning in all this perfection. Like, I don't know, are you part of my Facebook group?
I think so. I
Um,
honestly don't go on social media. I try not to go on social media very much.
yeah, no, that's fine. I literally only ever access Facebook specifically for my Facebook group and any programs that I run there while my website is being created, because I can't handle it either. Um, the in the little beautiful bubble of soul space, there have been so many people who are getting like crazy synchronicities, crazy dreams, like big activations, and even just like, repeating number sequences, which in and of itself I know it can sound really trite, but honestly, like people are posting screenshots of how many times their phone is, and it's not just their phone, it's their odometer, it's the timing of like when they pause a podcast, it's like it's, or license plates or address plates or whatever. It's crazy. And I feel like for all of us who are waking up, there's this increasing like cohesiveness to the collective wavelength of what we're experiencing. And it's making for all these synchronicities that like we couldn't have timed it better. And I liked at the beginning that you said you just kind of stumbled into this, and I feel like that's a lot of people's reported experiences, that they just sort of stumbled into it. And yet that's just how it feels from the human perspective, because the conscious mind
Right.
wasn't necessarily seeking it, but the soul was like, follow this cookie crumb and follow this cookie crumb and this cookie crumb. Like, okay, we got you here.
Amy, from your experience, because I'm a huge believer in synchronicities. They've been occurring long before I was into all the spiritual stuff. I just didn't really know what they were. Are synchronicities kind of like your higher self giving you guidance without intervening in your free will?
I love that description. Yes, that's exactly what it feels like, or confirmation without interfering with your free will. Because exactly like your higher self or your guides, which part of what I understand guides to be, not exclusively, but a lot of the time it is just like our higher self in a different dimension.
Hmm.
It's like not going to dictate your path and your choices here, but it totally wants to give you like hint hint, like this is the way, or like hit, yes, you're on track. Like just know that everything's working out, and we can't spoil the surprise, and we can't give you all the answers, but this is, it's working, keep going.
Yeah, and honestly, I always felt like I received them when I was on the like what I would have considered the right path. When my life was spinning out of control, I wasn't receiving the synchronicities, or at least I wasn't open to allowing them to be received. But when I feel like the more that I work on me, the more that I open up to love, the more I help others, the more I do more, I guess, the more positive, loving things, I get more guidance. And I guess that makes sense because you're more open. If you are living with a lot of love, your heart is wide open to receiving love as well. And so part
Mhm,
of that, I guess, could be the guidance that you're receiving.
mhm. I
Awesome.
think that's a great point, that like it's always there. That's really what I think, is that it's always there. It's just like back to the radio dial analogy. It's like if you're having a day, which I totally have them, so this is no judgment or criticism to anyone, that you just feel off or cranky and, just annoyed, it's inevitably that day that you freaking stub your toe, or you are like, you're cutting something on the cutting board and you drop a knife, and it like it's just like just these petty annoyances, right? And it can even of course escalate to like big exaggerated annoyances, but often it's just petty ones. And you just sort of, or like you like the light bulb, you turn on the light and the light bulb blows out, and just like, oh, like why today? It's because that's the frequency that you're dialed into. Whereas when you're in that space
Hmm.
of lucidity and love, and like that openness to giving love and receiving love and not feeling all choked up around it, then those will be the days where you experience a lot of synchronicity, because you're just in that harmonious flow. Like it's sort of like having your boat angled to go with the waves rather than angled to like have the waves crash against the side.
Yep. I agree. I will say, in relation to that, if anybody here is looking for a real quick, easy way, and a lot of your listeners may already know this, but quick, easy way to get your day started off right. What works really well for me is gratitude, specifically gratitude journaling. Gratitude is one of those high vibration emotions, just up there with love and compassion. And just write down. things that you're grateful for, and some of those things have yet to have happened. But if you can tune into that vibration, you're going to attract more things into your life to be grateful for. And I think that was part of, and again, going back to the programming and stuff, it's like we get pounded in our heads about scarcity and lack and everything, right? But there's nothing but abundance, in this lifetime. And if we focus on the things we're grateful for, the things that we're happy about, the people in our lives that we are so fortunate to have in our lives, our pets, anyone listening to this is, I'm sure has a home, has food to eat, obviously either has a cell phone or a computer, some way to stream this, no matter how bad life gets, just remember you have a lot to be grateful for and focus on that, and you'll attract so much more to you. It's kind of incredible when you get to that frequency. Blessings come left and right. It's overwhelming.
That's so true. And it's interesting because I'm journaling more these days than I have in a long time, but having a soon to be 3-year-old, it just sort of changes things and you don't have as much time to journal. But so if anybody's listening, they're like, I don't really journal, or I hate writing, or I don't feel like I have time for that. I'm realizing as you describe this that that's pretty much the premise of my morning meditation. I meditate for a minimum of 20, I think it's 24 minutes because it's for a guided meditation. I just listen to the same one every day. But the whole time I'm not even really following the guided prompts anymore. I'm just vibing to
Mhm.
how good it feels to have quiet time in the morning before my family wakes up, sitting on the couch, especially this time of year. The sun comes in, there's all the sun shining on me, and just how happy I am, how good it feels to be alive. And then when that feels kind of complete, then usually what happens is I start vibing on the things I'm grateful for that haven't manifested yet. And I think that's really
Yep.
really supercharged my manifestation process because I don't care if they're not here yet. I have lost that sense of doubt that they're not going to arrive, or the fear that it's not going to arrive. And even if it comes up in me, it's so short lived. So I'm just basically sitting there, daydreaming about all the good stuff that's coming and
Yep.
feeling
Yep.
so excited about it. And then it comes really fast and really easily.
Yeah, and honestly, sometimes you can get to a point, I've done this, where I've been so grateful for something that I hadn't yet received, that I've already kind of played out the
You're over
emotions
it?
of having it, and I'm cool. I moved on.
Yeah, totally.
But
Totally.
thank you.
Yeah, totally. You're just kind of over it. You're like, oh, that was great. I got the complete fulfillment of that experience that I wanted to have without ever having to make it happen in 3D, which is really, really the fundamental premise of what freedom actually is being like you said towards the beginning of our conversation, you just have that feeling without having to buy the thing. And it doesn't mean you can't have the thing or you can't buy the thing, but just that you don't need to have the thing first to have the feeling. The
So
feeling
true.
is you just feel the feeling. And then if you do end up getting the thing, it's even better and faster and easier and more magical because you are already in that place where it just gets to flow in pretty much effortlessly.
I totally agree. Life is amazing, isn't
It's so amazing.
it?
This has been such a good conversation, and I know that we have to have more conversations like this because I feel like this is barely scratching the surface. But before I let you go, you mentioned that you'd read some books about star seeds, and it's almost like I can feel my audience being like, "What are the books, Amy? Ask them, what
All
are the
right,
books?"
let me pull up my app here. I don't typically remember titles and names very well. I kind of just remember the messages that I receive. Let's see here. So, are these in order? Oh, a Starseed guide Andromeda, Pleiades, and Sirius, Volume 1 by Ava Marquez. So a Starseed guide. I believe Bringers of the Dawn. Yeah, Teachings from the Pleiadians by Barbara Marciniak. A Radical Approach to the Akashic Records. I started reading that again. I had read that a while ago. It's pretty good. I thought there was one more. I would start there. Those were both the Starseed Guide and then Bringers of the Dawn were both really good.
That's awesome. I have read Bringers of the Dawn, but I hadn't even heard of the Starseed Guide, and definitely that's going to be on my postpartum reading list.
Yeah, it was very, I guess it just confirmed a lot for me. You know, it was like even in regards to my interests, like I've always loved the pyramids and stuff, and like reading that book kind of answered why I'm so intrigued.
Did you? That was your last question, wasn't it?
Yeah,
What
yeah,
you
it
like to
was.
build a pyramid? Yeah.
Well, I just like have always been so fascinated, and we, human beings have no explanation. We still can't replicate it, even at 25% scale. Like it's just they're there for a reason. Where do they come from? Like,
Yeah.
So we did talk about that.
It's just insane. Like even that, to think that that we just like function in the world being like dum like this is just life, and we have like physical structures that absolutely can't be explained, and like completely obvious gaping holes in the stories that
Honestly,
around our our origins, and like how this came to be and that came to be. It's really funny. It's
it's
funny when
hilarious.
you're in a good mood. If you're not in a good mood,
Frustrating.
yeah.
For sure.
Anyway,
100%.
Kevin, thank you so much for your time and for this beautiful conversation. And I really, really look forward to part 2, and I'm sure part 3, etc., of this conversation,
We
because I
will.
can just feel like there's so much more. And thank you, beautiful listeners, for listening. I trust that you got lots of little activation nuggets out of this conversation, because it was a good one. And I love you, and I appreciate the powerful, valuable currency of your attention. I hope that you are rendering beautiful realities for yourself through this intended focus of, what feels good and what feels true, and the process of healing your trauma and deprogramming yourself, understanding the power of who you truly are. I hope you have a beautiful day or night wherever you happen to be, and I will catch you on the next episode, friends. Hello, beautiful being of shadow and light. If you loved this episode and you want more, you can join my new membership, Light Codes. This membership is the place where you will receive all the light codes that I am channeling on how to navigate the intensifying energies of this next phase of the rapid awakening and ascension of the human collective consciousness on Earth. But also all the light codes on how to step into our highest selves, to activate our soul mission, to harness our magic and power as creators, and to manifest the highest timelines for ourselves and for the collective. To find out more information about light codes and all the ways to work with me, see the link in the show notes or visit amybelair.com. Thank you so much for being here with me on this episode. I appreciate you more than my words could ever say. Please remember to rate, review, subscribe, and share, and I will catch you on the next episode.